and another story I think that you had on your videos, and we have those videos on God discussion. I'd like to get into that a little bit too. Was
Sure.
this notion that Thomas Jefferson had authorized the building of churches on Indian reservations?
That's a good one. Yeah, the Kaskaskia Indians. Okay, because and this is an old one. Justice Rehnquist used this all the time. Justice Rehnquist is the one that came up with the thing Barton uses now, that the separation of church and state is a misleading metaphor. Okay, that comes from Rehnquist's dissent in Wallace v. Jaffrey, 1985 case about school prayer. I call it Rehnquist's masterpiece of historical revisionism, because there were so many history lies packed into this one opinion, that dissenting opinion he wrote, and one of them was the one about the Kaskaskia Indians. Jefferson signed over 40 Indian treaties during the time he was president. Okay, this one has a provision for, I believe it's a few $100 to build a church and the salary of their priests for a few years, okay? Now, these were things that were asked for by the Kaskaskia, and there was no constitutional reason not to give it. The Kaskaskias, they were not Americans. They were a sovereign nation, so like our Bill of Rights didn't apply to them.
Right,
so
okay.
to grant a religious provision in a treaty to a sovereign nation, as long as it didn't affect American citizens, there was no, the executive branch could do that. Okay? Now, the reason the religious right loved to use the Indian treaties, Indian schools, all that stuff, as examples of Congress financially supporting religion in schools and building of churches and all of that, is because there are no examples of that being done for public schools for American citizens, because they didn't do that because it was, they couldn't. We have a constitution. They could, however, do certain things with the Indian tribes. So the only examples that the revisionists can come up with are to do with the Indian tribes.
Well,
so that's why they use those.
And they'll lurch at this one because Thomas Jefferson was a deist, notoriously. I mean, he's got some statements out there about the Bible. He was definitely not into the Bible at all, and actually, sat there and ripped out pieces of the New Testament and took out all the supernatural aspects of the New Testament.
He has a list in one letter, I believe, to I think it's to William Short, where he actually lists flat out like all the specific things in the Bible he doesn't believe, like the virgin birth, everything in the Bible he doesn't believe. So no Christian now would look at him and say he was a Christian, because he's flat out stated he didn't believe in any of these things. But back to, I just want to give the Indian treaty thing, that the really funny thing about it was that Jefferson was going to include, now out of the 40 Indian treaties that Jefferson signed, the Kaskaskia one was the only one where there was any religious provisions whatsoever. Okay? It wasn't like he did this all the time, but the religious right, they turned it into plural. It's Christian missionaries, and also the Kaskaskia had been Catholic since the 1600s, converted by French missionaries. He wasn't converting them. But Jefferson was actually going to include in his, what we now call the State of the Union address that year, 1803, about the treaty. We got 9 million acres of land, and he was going to say what the provisions were. James Madison, his Secretary of State, looked at it and actually told Jefferson, oh man, take that out. Take out that religion stuff in the Kaskaskia Treaty, because Madison was afraid that the public might get nervous that the federal government was violating the First Amendment if they didn't realize the difference. Jefferson had a more confidence in the American people that they understood the government and the Constitution better than Madison thought. People might get nervous, they may not understand. There was a little difference of opinion there. And Madison had him take that out of his speech because he was afraid. So when people say, oh, no, everybody back then, there was nothing wrong. They didn't see anything wrong with the government promoting religion. Well, no, James Madison said flat out, no, this will make people nervous if they see the government paid for a church because they'll think the government is, sliding on the First Amendment.
Well, James Madison was taken out of these curriculum standards as an Enlightenment thinker. You know, and they tried to take Jefferson out, too, but I think the public outcry was so strong.
They replaced him with John Calvin.
Oh, I know. John Calvin and Thomas Aquinas. I mean,
yeah.
Oh,
Thomas Aquinas,
some of the most turgid
it doesn't bother me as much, but John Calvin, Jefferson was like, I think he called John Calvin a demon or something in one letter. Like, he just was, very, very anti-Calvin.
Oh, definitely. You know, and another thing on these Glenn Beck presentations with Barton on there, they always have, I mean, I've watched them as I'm doing other things because the whole thing sort of, I have to be honest, it kind of irritates me. And so they have this great big huge picture, and they're like circling, different people's faces on there, talking about, this one was a member of the clergy, and this one was, and and this and that. And I'm thinking, okay, if we ever got to a place in this world where a bunch of people representing all kinds of different countries got together and we decided we're going to take care of Plastic Island, which is that great big huge swirly thing of plastic and junk that's in the ocean.
Yeah.
All right, let's say we create this great big huge treaty. It's an international treaty. Everybody decides. It would be like saying, all right, 70% of the people who signed this treaty were Christians, therefore it's a Christian document. I mean, I don't follow his logic at all.
And therefore it's a Christian swirling pile of plastic. Actually, there's another one I want to get to. I don't know how much time we have left here, but real quick, there's another one that actually Barton's been using on Glenn Beck. He whips out this document his claim, and he uses this in all his presentations, is that he has documents where Jefferson not only signed them in the year of our Lord, he signed them in the year of our Lord Christ, okay? So he pulls out this document, and he actually, on his website, I have the quote here that that some, a couple of presidents said, in the year of our Lord on documents. However, he talks about Jefferson signed him in the year of our Lord Christ. He says this is the explicitly Christian language that President Thomas Jefferson chose to use in official public presidential documents. Okay?
Oh, I know.
Okay, now, all right, have you seen that? You want the real explanation behind that one?
Sure.
This